the good stuff.
Welcome back, everybody, to Goodwill Podcasting with Connor and Stone. Dan is out today for personal reasons, but no matter, because we are still your movie podcast. And today, we are talking about the one person that I think in this world where the term that applies to them can be, hey, you think you're not that guy anymore, but everybody who watches him still knows that he is. That is Jason Statham, the actor, martial arts enthusiast, action star, I would say, maybe the only one we have left besides Tom Cruise, besides Mr. Cruise. Has a new movie coming out this past weekend, A Working Man. And Dan and I just covered that in a review that will be coming out shortly after this episode. But we have decided to speak about two films from Jason Statham's filmography, very different pictures. I don't know how, let me break down how this usually works when it comes to these themed episodes. We knew that Jason Statham was going to be our topic of discussion. So we tried to pick, as a group, the co-hosts, tried to pick each of us a film to speak about that we think we would maybe enjoy, but then also that we haven't watched before. So it might be really random and you guys might have not seen it before, but we're going to break it down. We're going to share what we liked, what we didn't like, and maybe you can check it out yourselves, or maybe you've seen it and it'll be an enjoyable experience for you. But today, two movies that came out very close together, but are very different. And that is 2000's Guy Ritchie's picture, Snatch, and then also 2001, The One, directed by James Wong, starring Jet Li. And hopefully people have seen this movie because it is an interesting time. But Connor, I wanted to ask you something to get this started. I had an interesting prompt. Okay. We know that Jason is known for fighting. I would say we watched 4 movies this weekend with Jason Statham. We watched Spy with Melissa McCarthy, these two, and then also A Working Man. And I think in every single one of these, there's probably a punch thrown by the guy. So I wanted to ask you, as a guy, you seem like, definition, look up in the dictionary, a guy, Connor pops up. Did you ever get in a fist fight in school? And if so, who was it with? And if so, what was it about? And if so, did you win?
Not in school.
Ooh.
Multiple while I was in the Marine Corps. Why? Mostly because we were bored. And I'm not joking. At the barracks, we drink and we fight. That's what it's like.
Are there rules? Like, how is it, like bare knuckles, wrestling? Like, what are we doing?
I'd say like 85% of the time it's wrestling.
Okay.
But yeah, I think all right, you asked if I won. I won and lost. However, I'll say the one time I won, but I also lost because my one buddy was always just Georgia cornbread fed, like big old country boy. And he always wanted to fight me and I never would. Oh, finally one night I had a little bit of Jack Daniel's honey in my system and I said, let's run it. And he had picked me up over his shoulder and slammed me on what we found out was a sewer head in the middle of our grass field. I'm fairly certain I broke some ribs. However, I was so drunk and adrenaline rushed, I didn't feel it, and I bounced up and got him in a headlock, and he tapped after he almost passed out. So I technically won.
Did anybody ever get seriously hurt, and did you guys get in trouble for that, or that was just something to be expected while you're in the barracks?
I mean, like if our higher ups came around, we would all kind of scatter, but they all knew because they were, our rank at one point in time. I think the only time people got like seriously hurt was when the Navy tried to fuck with us at our barracks.
So did you mess them up or they messed you up? I feel like okay. Yeah, Marines don't mess around. Kick their ass. I expected that to be your answer. I always wondered how I would do in the Marines. I think I could have done it. I'm good at just following orders. So I think I would have been fine. I'll just do my job. That's what I did all last night. And it's my job to come on this podcast every single Sunday. I treat it as a job. I enjoy it though. And here I am, even though I'm a little bit tired. But when it came to fighting, I think the only time I've ever really fought anybody was in high school, maybe one time. And I can't remember what it was about. I was probably 14, 15, and my buddy just like flipped me on a table. That was about it.
Hell yeah.
That's all I can remember.
I
But
guess in high school we did locker box in the locker room, if that counts.
oh yeah, we never locked a box. I went to a very small school, so I probably would have gotten a lot more fights. Maybe. I mean, I don't look for them, and I also am not like a cocky guy, so I don't really. Maybe I don't think I would have been bullied either because I'm a pretty big and I don't know. Hopefully, I wouldn't have been bullied because I didn't go to like a public school. I went to a very small private school. Who knows? Do you think you went to a public school? Were you the bully or were you bullied or you were just good?
I was just chill. I was that
All
guy
right.
that never really had like one friend group. I just kind of bounced around like for whoever had like weekend plans and I would hang out with everyone. But dude, my graduating class was I think 798 people.
Damn. You want to know? You don't know how big mine was? Mine was six.
What?
Six.
Were you homeschooled?
No, I wasn't homeschooled, thankfully. And it's funny that you say that. I went to a Christian school, and I was always so worried that I wasn't going to have because you go in with this fear, or I went with this fear in high school that maybe I wasn't getting like what were they teaching at public schools? Was I getting as good of an education here as I was there? Am I going to be behind when I go to college? Actually, I was like advanced quite a bit, which was cool, but that was a big worry of mine in high school. I was like, hopefully, when I get out of here, I'm not slower than everyone else. But I will say the thing that's crazy to me is that I didn't interact socially with a whole lot of people who didn't go, who weren't in a Christian environment when I was younger. So the fact that I'm pretty decent at it, I would say, is cool because I know individuals who are not because they were grown up like that.
See, you and I were the opposite. I went into high school knowing I wanted to go into the Marine Corps, so I kept my grades at a level where I could keep playing sports. Because if you had an F, you couldn't play anymore. So I was like a DC student.
Yeah, I was like the best guy on my basketball team, but that's because we didn't have anybody else. But I will say, I think that if I was in high school, like a public high school, it would have been interesting because, by the way, guys, we will put the time cards down below of Snatch and The One. This is just a good conversation right now. But I think I would have done probably theater and sports. I don't know what sport I would have excelled at the most. Maybe football. I never got the chance to play football. So that would have been interesting. Probably would have been like a linebacker or something. But it would have been cool to like do theater and because I like singing. I'm good at singing. I think I could have acted. And then football as well. But I guess we'll never know. Did you think though? Do you think what group? Were there actual groups? Because my picture of high school, right? And this is gonna be hilarious, are movies. Like, are there cliques? You said you just bounced around. You really didn't have one core friend group that you hung out with. I mean, my high school was like 25 people. So you can't have a whole lot of groups when it's just that small.
I'm pretty sure at one point, I think my senior year, there was 4,100 people at my school.
Jeez, that's pretty big. Where did you live
What?
next to Cincinnati, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this high school I went to, I think it's still the second biggest high school in Ohio. And like there's one hallway in the basement that's a quarter mile long. So like if we were getting ready for conditioning for like lacrosse and other sports did it too, and it was like raining or snowing out, we would run that hallway.
Yeah, that's a lot bigger. I can tell you a good story. We're just telling stories, but my school was really a school, but where we had classes at didn't have a gymnasium. So what we would do is for basketball practice, we would rent out the gymnasium of the public school. Obviously, they have to use it, right? So we would rent it out at like 6 a.m. in the morning. And then we would practice from like 6 to 7:45. And then I would go back to my actual school, shower, and then go to classes.
That's wild.
Yeah, especially doing it in the winter. that was rough as well. So I did that for 7 years, man.
Our graduating classes are too big that we can't have it at our gymnasium. So we go to Xavier University.
Yeah, I don't know. My life would have been maybe a lot different if I went to a school like that, but guess we'll never know. But between us in our high school years, who would have been in the better in a fight? I think you would have been probably. You probably could have kicked my ass.
I don't know, I was kind of a bitch.
Yeah, I was too. I'd say that. Yeah, we wouldn't have we just went our separate ways. We would have been like, hey, we'll make up. You know,
So did you play any
get
other
out,
sports besides
get
basketball?
out. My school didn't really offer a whole lot, so all I had was basketball and soccer. I like basketball a lot more than soccer, but I played soccer because it was available. I wasn't good at soccer, but I was aggressive, so I was just on defense. And sometimes aggressiveness allows you to win the ball sometimes, and I exceeded in areas against certain individuals. But once we played like a team that could actually play soccer, that just ran circles around us. They're just like, "Oh, you want the ball? I'm just gonna kick it over to this guy," and I'm like, and then I just run for a little bit, and I'm tired. So
I golfed, swam, and played lacrosse.
that's I see. I don't know what I would have done. We'll never know. We'll never know.
Well, it's so funny too because like I don't know if you guys were the same, but part of our curriculum was you had to get like a language credit. I got mine from
Yeah,
taking
yeah.
1 year of French and 1 year of American Sign Language.
Do you know either of those still?
I can say hi, my name is Connor in sign language, nothing in French.
I was really hoping you were gonna say, "Hi, my name is Connor." I could say that in French,
I think
but
it's Je m'appelle Connor. I don't know. Someone fact check me in the comments.
yeah. Also, don't you have to put like a little accent on it, or you just say "Je l'appelle Connor"? Even I put more of an accent on it than you just did now. But I don't know. Anyway, speaking of accents, we can get into Snatch. Um, Directed by Guy Ritchie, came out in 2000. This movie was the second feature film directed by Guy Ritchie after Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, which was the very first film that Jason Statham was ever a part of. See, Jason Statham, I believe, grew up. I mean, it's a perfect conversation that what we were having just now because he was a big sports guy, huge sports guy. But then also he would like sell items on the street, like very busy streets, tourist streets, which is kind of a sketchy occupation. His father did that as well. Well, anyways, I mean, we could see from his films was a very muscular is and was and kind of has always been a very muscular guy. And I believe what happened, he was working out at a gym one time, and an agent saw him and approached him, and he became a model. So you can actually find pictures out there of him being a model. Well, I believe that Guy Ritchie found him through that and then brought him in. And as they were talking about the script for Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, basically his character, whose name is Bacon, literally did what he had done, which was a seller like on the streets. They have a term for it. I'm not quite sure what it is. But anyways, that was once Jason told Guy Ritchie that he had done that, Guy Ritchie's like, the role is yours. So he was more of a supporting character when it came to that film, but I would say he is the lead of this movie, which is a huge step for him. And I believe this is just his second movie. And Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, I believe, won Best Picture at the BAFTAs, which was huge. It was Guy Ritchie's directorial debut. And there's always been a lot of comparisons over the years, I believe, to Guy Ritchie's movies and Quentin Tarantino. Do you see that at all?
Yeah, you can definitely see it a little bit, especially with how the camera's moving in this one. I feel like it's pretty comparable to a Kill Bill or Pulp Fiction's camera work, maybe even Death Proof.
Yeah, I think it's with
Oh,
Tarantino's early works because you have like Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, and maybe Jackie Brown, which is more about gangsters, drugs, stuff like that, and you can definitely feel that in this movie and his first film as well. And also the fact there's just all these characters with really quippy dialogue. I mean,
yeah.
that's what Tarantino does too.
Yeah, definitely. I think Tarantino writes a little bit longer form dialogue than Guy Ritchie does, but it's
More
definitely there.
always more of a play with Tarantino.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the minority, but I think Hateful Eight's one of Tarantino's best.
Hateful
Uh,
Eight, yeah, I really like Hateful Eight. Yeah,
Rotten Tomatoes is a 74% critic score, 93% audience, which Letterbox,
I can tell you why that happened. It's
why is
because
that?
Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels is very similar to this movie, and that film got so much recognition that when this movie came out, basically all the critics panned it because it was just too similar, and they didn't think it was that impressive. And I think it's very interesting, probably revisiting this movie not in that context, right? Because that's what I mean. Me and Dan just talked about the beekeeper and a working man. I mean, we're thinking about the beekeeper the entire time we're thinking about and watching a working man. But 25 years from now, we might not be doing that. So when
Yeah,
these people reviewed Snatch, they couldn't help but think about Guy Ritchie's first film, which hurt it a whole lot. But I think as time has gone on, if those same people revisited this movie without the other film in mind, in my opinion, it really doesn't matter how close your
yeah,
films are to one another. They can if they can stand on their own, then I think they're worth watching.
yeah. I was gonna say, I mean, Letterboxd, which is obviously a newer app, is a 4.0 out of 5. So I mean, that holds up to what you're saying and what the audience score is. And then IMDb is a 6.9 out of 10.
Yeah, I think this might be the definition of a cult classic. I think a lot of people over time have grown to love this movie a whole lot. The plot is there's basically two main plots, I would say, of this movie. There's so many actors in this, but the two main plots are there's an underground boxing, not ring, but organization. And then there's also this other plot with this big 84 carats, I believe, diamond that a lot of guys are trying to get. And because Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels did so well, what is different from that movie to this movie? Because there are some main actors that carry on, specifically, Jason Statham, which was in both films. But it's the fact that his first film got so much recognition that he was able to cast big name Hollywood stars in this film, which he was not able to do in his first picture. And this one also had a very increased budget. I believe Lockstock was $1.3 million budget, and this had a $10 million budget.
That was my
But I
next
mean,
thing.
was I correct on those?
Yeah, $10 million budget, and it grossed 30.3 million worldwide.
So look at that. Look at that. I did my research. I got it up here. But obviously, the two actors are Benicio del Toro and Brad Pitt. And the fact that they had Brad Pitt in this movie, if I'm not mistaken, Brad Pitt saw Lock, Stock, and he said, "Guy, I really want to be in your next picture." So I believe Guy actually wrote in the character of Mickey for Brad Pitt because he just wanted Brad Pitt in his movie, and then he kind of figured it out from there on in. But Brad Pitt brought a lot of paparazzi with him. I will say it was a little bit different for Guy. He had to get used to it, but yeah, this movie. What did you think about it, Connor? Because I'm fairly high on this, and I'm curious. I don't want to speak about it just yet. I want to hear what you have to say, especially with being a Tarantino fan. Curious
Yeah.
if you like this as much as his works.
Well, so for our audience, I'll let you know I messed up this week. We're actually going to talk about 3 movies. I watched the wrong one. So I was going to say it was the best of all the movies we watched today by a landslide, and I stand by it because I think both Crank and something we're getting to later, not so great. Um,
Interesting.
I'll tell you, I haven't rated it yet. I did have a great time with it. I'm somewhere between a 4 and a 4.5 right now.
Okay.
I kind of had to watch this in like chunks last night. It's warm in our house and my daughter kept waking up. And then so I would take like 20, 30-minute intervals in between. I didn't expect it to take such a dark turn when they burned his mom alive inside the RV. That
Yes.
was wild. Have you seen this one before, Stone?
I had not seen it before.
Okay. Because this also, though, has one of my least favorite movie tropes ever. And it's whenever there's like a hostile situation or a situation where you think, guns could be firing, and guys are in the situation and don't have their gun loaded. I'm talking about the scene where they're in the hallway and their like getaway driver is there. I'm forgetting who else is there, but then someone pops out. I'll tell you who the actor was. Or it was Cousin Avi, the American guy. He was also there. But they walk out of the room, and then there's a guy like threatening them, and then they rack a bullet back into their gun. I hate that. If you're in a hostile situation and you know you're heading there, you should already have the bullet loaded.
There's a lot of adrenaline, man. Sometimes you just forget.
But that's a life or death mistake,
Yeah, it's cool that we're discussing this film right now, though, because I don't know if you've watched it or seen people talking about it, but there's a massive show on Netflix right now called Adolescence that everyone is watching, and it's cool because Stephen Graham is the lead of that show, and we just watched one of his main roles he's ever done, or his first main roles he's ever done. So it's really cool to see how far his career has gone and how, both him and Jason Statham, he's number one in the TV world right now, and Jason Statham's number one in the film world, which is crazy that we're talking about the film where they were both in together. But yeah, I really love this movie a lot. There's so many intertwining parts that you just don't think that you don't know how they're going to connect, and characters who you don't think they'll meet each other, and then they do meet each other. And at one point, it all culminates in this beautiful comedic fashion. And that's the thing too, is I think the comedy really lands. And I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed because I think if anybody's listening that's a really big fan of this movie, there's like 55 really quotable lines in this movie, and that I wish I could repeat verbatim, but I would remember one and be like, I love that. And then there's another one that gets in my head, and I was like, I love that. And it would push out the other ones. I can't hold all that. I don't have that much brain capacity, I guess. But I think the standout of this movie, and especially when it came out, is Brad Pitt and Pikey. And I think that's an inside joke from Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, because I believe a criticism of that movie was the fact that some of the accents weren't able to be understood. So Guy Ritchie kind of just went haywire with that. He's got, I'm really going to give you someone that you can't understand. But I thought he was just fantastic in this movie. I thought he was really great.
This might be one of my favorite Brad Pitt roles.
Yeah, and it's so funny because obviously we know that this is such an English film from an English filmmaker with a lot of English actors in it. And then Brad Pitt plays like the most rural part of Europe or England, I guess, in an authentic fashion. I don't know any Pikeys, but I guess if people were really okay with it, that is something I should have looked up, how close his accent was to actual how Pikey sound. But I think he did a great job. The humor is just so good, and I love it because I think they mentioned the fact that they purposely turn on that mumbling whenever they purposely don't want someone to understand them, which I thought was pretty hilarious. But
yeah,
did you find any research? You trying to find out if the accent was approved by other fellow Pikeys?
Apparently, it's not a real accent.
Oh, so they just made it up.
It literally says it was meant to be a caricature of a strong, non-standard Irish accent.
Well, the more you know. Obviously, anybody listening, we're not from Europe. So I'm glad. It was a big hit in England, so I'm sure they didn't care and they thought it was hilarious. And that's the thing, too, is the more and more I watch British films, the more I'm realizing that they have a certain type of humor. It's like more aggressive, I would say, a very aggressive type of humor, more crude. And the more I watch films, the more I get used to it. The one movie I could think of that was very similar is Filth, which I think Filth is a little bit more darker. Yeah, it's a little more darker than this movie, but that's what popped in my head. But I'm excited to watch other Guy Ritchie movies after this. He's had a very interesting career. I don't know how much you've looked into it, but he's directed some huge movies, like the Sherlock Holmes movies with Robert Downey Jr. Watching this
Covenant with Jake
film,
Gyllenhaal.
uh, you said what? I'm sorry.
Covenant with Jake Gyllenhaal.
That's right, The Covenant, right? He did. That was one of his most recent pictures. I love how that's the one that stands out in your mind, man. You're just on it with Jake Gyllenhaal. But
I wish I was on it
I,
with Jake Gyllenhaal.
I know you do. But it's so obvious when you're watching this film. I have to say, his cinematographer is great. Tim Morris Jones. There's these angles, these quick pans back and forth that are just so effective. The soundtrack is just so good in this. It feels like this movie is moving at 100 miles per hour, and I can't wait to rewatch it because it's so funny. Because at the very beginning, they throw you so much information. They give you everybody's names, and I'm like, I don't know who any of these people are. And then easily you're able to understand everyone, understand their motives, and they're all so memorable that it's easy to. And I don't think anybody else's story oversteps each other. I think they're all perfectly blended together.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's like one of those I feel like I need to turn on and rewatch. Like you said, it is moving so rapidly for I think this movie's 2 hours, 10 minutes, something like that. And like it doesn't slow up once. Like arguably one of the slowest scenes is the first time we see Brad Pitt fight in the barn.
That is true. Because I love that scene because I think as an audience member, if pikeys aren't real, that I guess people in England might have not known how that was going to play out either.
I think probably how this landed because like I mean don't swear me to it, but there's like the whole thing where like English people and Irish people hate each other, and that wages back to like the Queen and I think Ireland's prime minister. I don't know, but so they were all probably rooting for you know the Irish gypsy to lose this fight, and then he came out and just one punched him.
Yeah,
Um,
so pikeys are just another name for a gypsy, which is what they are, just travelers.
yeah,
Okay.
I knew that from how many times I've rewatched Peaky Blinders.
Oh, okay. There you go. You got a little bit of information to add to this. I watched like the first season of Peaky Blinders, and I think that was it. But I'm also I might have to watch it though when the movie comes out because supposedly I think the movie's coming out maybe this year,
I think
maybe
it's
this
supposed to
year.
be spring of next year.
Okay, that sounds about right. I love how much dogs are in this film now. There is a scene where it's kind of suggested that there was some dog fighting going on. And I was like, oop, I don't
Not
like that.
suggested.
That's exact. Well, obviously it's fake, but that's what they're insinuating happened. Wasn't a huge fan of that, but then I mean, I got my dogs always causing noise in the background whenever we're recording these episodes, so I'm a big dog fan. But the dog with swallows a squeaky toy, and the dog really went off the script a couple times too, which I found that out, and you can see it in the film. Like it randomly attacks them at points. I don't know if you remember that, but it was the three guys that are the ones that have the dog, and they're the ones that are in the car with it,
Yeah.
and it just attacks two of them, and I'm like, what is it doing? And I found out that was accidental, and luckily the actor wasn't harmed at all. But yeah, big fan of dogs. And you have a dog. Well, that's the thing with pikeys, I guess, too, is they all have dogs, and whenever they do a deal, they just give a dog to someone. Really funny that people just get dogs all the time. I'm a big fan of that. Big fan of dogs having homes. So
Yeah, I'm with you. Goodwill Podcasting is a dog's podcast.
that is true. That is true. I will say one thing. I'll say about a certain actor. It's Benicio del Toro. Two things about him. One, I read that this was the math or Guy Ritchie had a wake up call when it came to him because he gave him some notes, and I guess Benicio maybe didn't follow them as much as he would have liked. and that's his first time working with a big star. So he was just like, okay, this is how it's going to be. I'm assuming he liked the finished product, but I did see that there was some hiccups there when it came to the two of them. But anyways, I was expecting him to be in this movie a lot longer, and I was sad that he wasn't. When whatever happened to him happened, I thought there's no way that was him, and it was, and he's just gone. A little disappointed, I have to admit.
I was gonna say, yeah, I even thought about that like towards the end when we're at like the final fight and everything. Like this is where, he's supposed to be, Frankie Four Fingers. And like I feel like we didn't see him. I could have looked over him. I did watch this at like 1 a.m. last night. So was he at the final fight where he was supposed to be?
Brother, Frankie Four Fingers died. They shot him in the head.
Oh, you're right. Who was I thinking of? I don't know. There was.
That's Benicio del Toro's character.
Yeah, I'm tired.
There you go, brother.
There was someone I was looking
yeah.
for the final fight. I'll come back to that thought. The final fight, however, what did you think of like how they were kind of mixing it in like full speed versus also kind of slowing it down?
Love it. It's just, I think people forget the fact that a camera is a character. Like that's the thing is with having a camera in your hands, not that I'm an expert at it at all, but also a shot, like you can do whatever you want. Your movie doesn't have to be just film this, film that, film this, cut this together. It doesn't have to be that. You can have fun with it. You can speed. That's the thing too, right? You're saying slow motion. Like he speeds stuff up insane amount of times here, and then he also slows that down. I mean, sometimes that's the only thing you can do with footage, and he does both of them expertly. I mean, everyone loves that, rightfully so, the sequence of the American cousin Avi coming to and back to America is a really quick editing sequence where they speed it up really fast, and he like gets on a plane, he takes a shot, he puts his head down, you see the plane take off, he stamps his passport. It's this really quick editing, and it shows you the power of movies, in my opinion, because it's the combination of what is on the screen, how it is being shown to you, at what speed it's being shown to you, and how fast it's edited together. That is the humor. There's not a word there. There's not a joke there. The joke is the filmmaking. And I think that's so funny and so impressive. And I really love that. I really love that moment.
Yeah. That was a really good speech by you. I think that boxing scene at the end might be like one of my favorite in like movie like history. Especially one that like the entire center focus of this is not boxing.
Yeah, you've probably watched, I mean, you've watched probably a lot more boxing films maybe than I have, because we know a famous series that I haven't watched. I'm not going to name it. I bet people
Rocky.
can guess what. Okay, thanks, Connor. Appreciate that, my guy. Didn't want to name that, but it's cool. I'm also assuming you watched Southpaw as well, Mr. Jake Gyllenhaal, man.
Yeah.
So is that scene, right? The end of Snatch, is that better than any sequence in Southpaw? There's no way. That's Jake Gyllenhaal, my guy. There's no possible way.
I think it's better than all of them but the final fight.
Okay, see, I knew it. You got to give the edge to him. I will say one thing
if you want me to tell you which one's a better movie, I'll say Snatch.
Okay, all right. I respect that. I will say too. I mean, just talking about the final fight. One thing, like I said, this could be boring, and I think that Guy has lost that in the years because he did go through a phase where he did commercial films. Like I said, he did the 2 Sherlock Holmes movies, and then he did also Man from U.N.C.L.E. Man from U.N.C.L.E. I've never seen that movie, The Man from U.N.C.L.E. But then also he did one more. I know he did Aladdin, and I thought there was one more. Even the Ministry of Ungentlemen. Yeah, he did those, and the Ministry of Ungentlemen, The Warfare 2 feels more commercial in a way. But I think he has lost he has this this editing style. Like it's this fast moving, like we said, speeding up, slowing it down. I think he's lost that over the years. I don't remember really anything memorable like that in the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. Maybe I'll rewatch that tonight just to see how different Guy Ritchie's films have become over the years.
Have you watched The
But
Gentleman?
I have seen The Gentleman. I have not seen it in a while though. I would like to, even with The Gentleman, there's a lot of characters there. Like I said, I just don't know. I remember sequences from the trailer and from the movie of Sherlock Holmes where it felt and looked just like it does here in Snatch. But I don't know if it was there in the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. I don't know if it's there in his new movie. So I'm curious if him doing more commercial films, these IPs, these bigger budgets, in a way he's lost his sauce because he did have some sauce there. Me and Dan were just talking about David Ayer. David Ayer has zero sauce. Zero sauce. There's nothing interesting at all about his filmmaking. Nothing. And that's what I'm saying. It's boring. It's boring filmmaking. It is filming stuff and cutting stuff together, in my opinion. What do you bring to the party?
Dang.
I'm sorry, David Ayer, and all of David Ayer's fans. But yeah, I'm curious. I want to watch all of Guy Ritchie's movies just to see it. I heard King Arthur's great.
I was gonna say,
I've heard,
I love Charlie Hunnam, so I think that might be my watch tonight.
yeah, and I also heard. Just on a Jason Statham binge, I also heard Wrath of Man is actually pretty decent, which was a collaboration again between the two. They have done 5 films, I believe, together. They've done Snatch, they've done Lock, Stock, as we've mentioned multiple times, Wrath of Man, but then also a movie that kind of got forgotten about on purpose called Operation Fortune, and then some French words underneath. let me see if I can read it here. Ruse de Guerre, because the villains in the movie were Ukrainian, and that was at the time when Ukraine and Russia were at each other's throats, and we didn't really think it was the best idea to picture Ukrainians in a negative light. So that movie literally was, people tried to forget about that movie, and it was just like kind of thrown out in theaters. Then also, I believe the 5th one was a movie called Revolver, which has mixed reviews on it as well. And you know what's funny in my research, what I found out about this movie is that Guy Ritchie actually married Madonna. And there's
Huh?
Madonna. Yeah, he was married to Madonna. And there's a Madonna song in this film. And I don't know if that's how they got connected. So they were married from 2000, which is when this movie came out, to 2008. And it's famous that I think the reason why they got married, because the movie that Guy Ritchie made after Snatch was awful. And it's because Madonna wanted him to make it, and she stars in it, and it's called Swept Away. And there's a reason why it's his worst reviewed movie, and nobody talks about it. And it was directly made after this film.
Man, friend of the podcast, Adam, aka Sunset Loner Cinema, gave it a 1 star.
Yeah, it's got a 1.7. It's rough. So I'm curious because there's a sequence in this movie. I believe it's the first time that we see the character played by Vinnie Jones, Bullet Tooth Tony, when he's getting shot by that one guy, and I think he has 6 bullets in him. There's a Madonna song playing in the background. I can't remember which Madonna song, but then also one of my favorite sequences of the movie is when that guy comes up that he's trying to get information out of, and he wheels his head up in the steering wheel, grabs his tie, and then starts driving the car. And this guy has to like keep up with him. And it's a great scene. It's so good. But then also, it's a little callback. You might not realize it, but on the radio is the exact same Madonna song. I wish I knew what it was. But he says in the car, like, "Oh, I love this song." And the reason why he loves that song is because that is the song that was playing when he got shot by those 6 bullets and he like survived.
Huh.
But I thought Vinnie Jones was also, everyone in this movie is really, really good. And there's a reason why. It's because I read somewhere, or I heard him speak, is that Guy Ritchie tries to cast people based on their voice. the way that they sound, because he wants each of them to sound like a character. So he really pays attention. And none of these guys sound the same. They might have the same accent, but I mean, even you could say, obviously Brad Pitt doesn't sound like anybody, but Jason Statham is Stephen Graham. Jason Statham has a very recognizable voice. Nobody sounds like Jason Statham. And then Stephen Graham is very soft spoken, a little bit more insecure, where Jason Statham's character Turkish is a lot, maybe a little bit more assertive. Just little things like that, and everybody like that is in this movie. I mean, you can even see Benicio del Toro. You have the guy from America. There's so many different moving parts here. Like everyone just feels just so unique, and I think that also helps with memorability, right? Because
Yeah.
how are we going to, if all the characters sound and act and look the same, why is your movie going to stick with me? But there's every single different plot line in this movie, the way they converge and the who's in them and the characters, it's just, I think, perfectly done. I don't know why this might move up to 5 stars for me. Right now it's at a 4.5. I really can't think of what I don't like in this film. Is there anything that you don't like?
It's not that I don't like it. I think it's like I said in the beginning, because right now I think I'm gonna have it at a 4 star. But it's like I said in the beginning, like I watched this in like batches, and so like I think already this movie's hard to like, comprehend every single character thrown at you immediately, and like it's moving so quick. There's like 3 different storylines going on. Um, so I
There's a
think
lot. If you broke it up, I can get why it would be very
yeah,
confusing.
which I also think is why I messed up talking about Frankie Four Fingers. Like,
That is true. That, I mean, there's a lot of characters, a lot of names to remember. Like I said, I think if you go on a second watch, literally the fact that they introduced the names, so like these are the, we know there's a lot of characters, so here are their
yeah,
names to try to help you out.
well, and I did like that in the beginning, like the editing style of how they introduced everyone. Um, my like kind of final closing thoughts is one, I was excited to see Lenny James in this because he was my favorite character in The Walking Dead.
Yeah, that is true. That's where I knew him from. I was thinking about that. I was like, where do I know this guy from? He's also, that is the one thing he's from, isn't it? I thought he was from Sahara. He is from Sahara. Okay. I love Sahara with Matthew McConaughey and Steve Zahn and Penelope Cruz. So he is from Sahara too. That's a movie that I grew up on. But one thing I wanted to say as well that stuck with me was the fact that Tyrone is I like him a whole lot. Like the other two guys treat him like trash. He's like the super big guy
Yeah.
that no one takes seriously. And I love that he's the one that catches Frankie Four Fingers. I forget, to a point of not remembering what happened to Frankie Four Fingers. There is a point in this movie where he's not seen for a while, and that is because I forgot, but he is trapped. He's in this van, and the 3 guys back up into the van, and he cannot get
Oh
out of
yeah.
it. And they go and try to rob the betters or whatever, and they're
The bookies.
unsuccessful to do so. The bookies, yeah.
Yeah, no, and
Unsuccessful to do so.
that was one of the funniest scenes in the movie when like our 2 guys, Lenny James and Robert Gee, so Vincent and Saul, are like trapped in there, and then our boy Tyrone just pops his head. He's like, "What are y'all doing?"
So that was actually based off a real life robbery I saw. Basically, I believe Guy looked up just dumb robberies, and what had happened, if you look at that scene, and you're looking for this, is they were trying to push their way out of that door. They're like, "Oh, we're trapped," and it was a pull. And there's literally video. He saw a video of someone doing that and was like, "Oh, that would be really fun to put this in the film," and that's what he did.
That's awesome.
Just very
All right,
simple
so
thing.
you said you had this at a 5 star,
4.5 right now. 4.5.
4.5. Okay, yeah, right now it's gonna be at a 4 for me, but I definitely think it can go up if I can watch it one continuous section.
Yeah, I mean,
But I'm not gonna do that.
Boris, the Russian drug, or not drug, he is the gun dealer. I didn't know that he would have such a big part in this film as either. I mean,
Yeah,
all the characters are great. Everyone they introduce you to are great.
yeah.
So
I don't know if I'm gonna watch this 5 times in one week like I did with The Big Short, but
yeah, not a whole lot of stock talk in this, unfortunately. But
I got issues.
yeah, you watched that twice, right?
4 times.
4 times? You watched it 4 times in the last week?
Yeah.
Like, we have like a podcast, right? There, you mean you try to bust these all out. Connor, come on, man. I know you really like Margot Robbie, but we got to like
To be fair, I haven't
Jason
been on.
Statham.
I haven't been on the podcast in 2 weeks.
Oh, that is fair. That is fair. Okay, touche.
I literally even made a video and in one of my reviews wrote, I could take this opportunity to watch stuff that's been on my watch list forever that I haven't gotten the time for. And instead, I rewatched that. I rewatched Dune 2, and the only thing new I watched was Invincible.
Dune 2. Mm-mm-mm. Speaking of twos, how about we talk about 2 Jet Lis? No. You thought two Jet Lis with the 2001 film, The One. Now, I don't like that it came out in 2001 and it's called The One. That's a little confusing and annoying. But Connor, this was your pick. Was there a reason why you picked this, or you just saw it? Like I said in this episode, we just pick movies sometimes that we haven't seen that look interesting. We want to knock it off of our watch list. So why'd you pick it, man?
I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I read just the first line of the description is stealing the power of the universe one by one, and it just made me think, oh, did Everything Everywhere All at Once copy this movie? Because then I was gonna have a fun time bringing it up to you if it did.
You watched this thinking that Everything Everywhere copied it?
I mean, it's literally one guy going around the universe is looking for himself. That's exactly what
Nah, I wouldn't say that it copied it, in my opinion. But
no, I don't think it did. I'm telling you, I solely picked this in hopes that everything felt like it stole, so I could just talk shit to you. Since last time I just shit on your favorite movie, which, by the way, I still have Everything Everywhere All at Once at a 3.5.
That's okay. At least you don't think it's a bad movie. But you want to maybe give the plot of what this movie's about?
Yeah, so we have our main character. He goes by a couple different names, but he's played by Jet Li, and he is basically bouncing between the multiverse, killing himself in other universes. And every time he kills one version of himself, he grows stronger. And then we kind of have this I forget, is it the MVA they're part of? Yeah, MVA agents jumping kind of around trying to stop him from taking over these universes and basically stop this guy, they even say it in the movie, from basically becoming a god.
That's true.
So that's played by Jason Statham and Delroy Lindo. This movie, like Stone said, came out in 2001, had a budget of $49 million and grossed $79.6 million.
Yeah, it was a decent hit. Decent hit.
Director was James Wong, most notably known for directing Final Destinations 1 and 3 and Dragon Ball Evolution. Rotten Tomatoes.
That's not a good recognition. That's the movie everyone wished didn't exist, my friend.
No, I said most notably known for. I didn't say recommended.
Evolution probably. Unfortunately, most known for probably that. Yeah.
Rotten Tomatoes critic score 13%. Audience 51%. Letterboxd, we got a 2.8 out of 5 average, and IMDb a 5.9 out of 10 average.
All right. What are your thoughts on it? You picked it.
It was rough. The soundtrack is unbelievably good. It's just aggressively 2000s rock, Godsmack. It's great. And the whole time I was thinking it wasn't as bad as all these average ratings that I saw, and I'd seen a few of our friends had rated this. And then we get to the final fight between Gabe and then this other guy who is the one killing everyone in the multiverse. I think his name is Yula. Yuan. And there is...
Oh, Yula, my bad. Yula, you're right.
Okay. There was people running quickly with video game running noises over top of them. Slow motion when they were about to hit the ground. That was almost like Zack Snyder bad. It's a ride. What'd you think?
I liked it. I will
Really?
say I was actually a fan of it. I think it's a fine, simple plot. The only thing that I think is dragging it down tremendously is two things, and two main things. One is that there's really no characterization given to anybody. What is the meaning of this film? What does it mean? Who knows? Who cares? That's not the point of it. Um, I mean, Gabe and his wife, which her name is TK. I wonder what that stands for, but that was an
That's my
interesting
wife's
choice.
initials.
There you go. Taylor Candy. I don't know.
Andy with a K.
Could be. I don't know. But yeah, there's no development given to really their relationship. Um, Basically, they are characters based on the circumstances around them, which is the fact that I think you didn't mention this in your summary of the plot, but basically, every time that Yulaw kills one of a variant, not a variant, a different multiverse, I guess variant of himself, he absorbs the energy. But let's say there's five of me, right? And I kill one of myself. That energy gets split into four and gets scattered amongst the four remaining stones. Not all of it goes into me because I killed myself or because I was the one that killed that stone. So basically, these two, which is Gabe and Yulaw, are the only ones remaining because Yulaw has killed everybody. So not only is Yulaw so powerful because he's absorbed like 123 of these of himself, but Gabe has as well. So Gabe, and I don't think we see this enough, he's not acting normally in his life, and things are really going wrong. Not wrong for him. He just feels really off. And when Yulaw shows up to try and murder him, that way he can become V1 and possibly a god, um, Gabe sees it as a way to get answers for his problems, which I thought was pretty interesting. One thing, big gripe, just because I was in the hospital when I was watching this, and I was at the hospital, I was working, and I had to think of this was they show up and they decide that they want to figure out if something's wrong with him, and he doesn't have an appointment or anything, and they just give him an MRI. I will say right now, Connor, I have a 90% of my patients get MRIs. They wait for days to get those done. Does not happen that quick. So it's funny. That's like my Marine thing, or your Marine thing that you always, nitpick. They didn't have their weapons loaded, even though they knew trouble was coming. That's, I guess, my thing. There's no way they would have been able to have an MRI done. But yeah, I think Jet Li's martial arts in this are super interesting because the two characters are different. I found this interesting fact that I was just fascinated with was the fact that both of them fight with different fighting styles because they are essentially two different people that are two different outlooks on life and two different motivations. It says that Yulaw, which is I would say the antagonist, he uses something called Zingi Quan, which is called the shape will fist, which is characterized by aggressive linear movements. Now, when I read that, I thought of the fact that there is a line that he says, which I thought was super cheesy, but he's like, that the quickest spot between two dots is a straight line, or 2 points is a straight line. And I thought that was interesting because that's his fighting style. I thought it was really cheesy in the moment. But anyways, and then Gabe, he fights with something called a Bagwaz Hong, which is the trigram palms. So this is more of like a circular motion that he does. And it says these martial arts are confirmed by their own personalities, as Yulaw is very direct and not caring for whom he hurts. And then while Gabe believes life goes in a circle and is perfectly balanced, which makes sense because that's what this organization is trying to do, right? They're trying to keep everything in balance, which is what essentially a circle does. So that was a really cool bit of information. Connor, I found one other thing out, and you're never going to believe this. Do you know who was originally supposed to star in this film?
Brad Pitt.
Dwayne Johnson. So that would have been interesting. Because he's also not a martial arts expert. So I mean,
Like
I
take the
guess he
role of Jason Statham?
no take the role of Jet Li.
What?
Yeah. So I don't know how that would have worked because he's a wrestler, right? He was in WWE, so he's not necessarily doing what Jet Li can do. Jet Li was a very, very famous martial artist in a lot of foreign films. This was, I believe, his fourth American film. His first one was Lethal Weapon 4, I believe, as the villain of that movie. But this was also really big for him because he was speaking a lot of English in this movie, and I thought he did an okay job. You can tell that he's not as fluent. Maybe the emotions don't come across as well as they could have. But I will say, Connor, one thing that really helped me like this movie. I don't know if you remember our discussion on Gerald's Game
I
when we
know where you're
did
going.
the Stephen King episode. But finding out that Carla Gugino was in this movie, very nice surprise, I will say. And I'm very
She might have
disappointed
helped
because,
out with me picking this movie.
yeah, I'm very disappointed because not only do we see an evil version of Jet Li, which is Yula, at one point we get to see an evil version of her, and she's wearing like a supervillain attire. And let's just say I would have been like, bring me in. I'm guilty, kind of a thing. Use me for your evil deeds. Willingly, I would have gone. And unfortunately, we don't see that character after she's really introduced. I think that would have made the climax a lot better. But yeah, I agree. The soundtrack, Connor. I don't know. You didn't see my review yet, but I had a video game back in the day on my PS2 that I used to play all the time called MX Unleashed. It was just a
Yeah,
dirt biking game. It was a dirt
I've
biking game.
played.
Yep, you just race, and then they also had this other thing where it was like felt like open world, which was really cool. I really loved it a whole lot. Anyways, the soundtrack of that was just like this movie, and it brought back a whole lot of memories because that was my favorite game growing up. But yeah, I thought this was a fun, really don't take it seriously type of movie, and it was easy to not take it seriously. Me and Dan just talked about that because I think that's an interesting conversation when it comes to movies nowadays. Is like, what am I supposed to take seriously? What am I not supposed to take seriously? Right? When do I know
Yeah,
if I'm supposed to have fun? When am I not? I think in this movie you could tell that it's posted. What's really serious about this movie? I will say one thing that's serious. Spoilers ahead if you guys care, who's listening, but that Carla dies in that one scene. There's not a whole lot of. I thought she was not going to die. By the way, I thought that was going to be a or plot twist or misdirect, but it wasn't. Anyways, that's like the most serious this movie gets, and then he gets her back. So you're just like, okay, whatever. Now, when it comes to like a working man, me and Dan talked about it. It's about sex trafficking, and it still feels like there's cartoon character villains in that. And I
yeah,
think you can't really have that theme or those plot points or that conflict in a movie like that and have that type of humor and have that type of characterization. These people that you're built like you've crafted in this way. But when it comes to I've traveled and killed all of myself and I must consume myself and there's these two guys after me. I think it's easy to say like, hey, this movie isn't supposed to be taken seriously, especially the end. Especially the end of this movie is awesome because I think that is what I've done in my research because it's the first time that either of us have watched this film. That is the like most memorable thing about this movie is the very last scene where Yula is sent to like this colony through these teleport or these black hole portals that transport them to other universes. And he's on like top of this like pyramid, and all these guys are coming after him. And I think he says, like, I am Yula, I'm not your bitch. Really funny line. And then and then the rock music just comes in. He just, there's just like hundreds of people that he's like trying to kick their ass. And then it just cuts to black. Really cool. It would have been down for a sequel of that. The two, maybe, instead of the one. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I was able to not care about not caring for anybody. I think Jet Li is a very capable martial artist, and I thought it was entertaining enough, in my opinion. I thought it was a fun time. I thought the plot itself was pretty interesting about consuming. It didn't need a whole lot of over explanation to it, and I think it was maybe over explained sometimes. Pretty simple. And
Yeah.
I also think it's funny to see a multiverse movie before everything we have nowadays. And I think maybe one little issue with this movie is that I don't think that the multiverse court or whatever that area is thought out enough. I think they have the bare minimum of what this world is outside of our reality. So it would have been a little bit cooler to them for them to expand on that maybe just a little bit. But I think they did the best
Yeah.
with it what they could have in 2001.
Yeah. It. What do you have this at?
3.
Okay. I mean, we're not that far off. I have it at a 2.
Yeah.
Like I keep griping on like how bad that final fight scene was with the sound effects. I do think when they're both like just on the ground and it's like hand to hand, I think it's really good. I think it's when like kind of like the magical powers and stuff like start coming in is when like it kind of turns me off. I will be excited. One of our loyal followers and friends of the pod, martial arts film freak. I want to know what his thoughts are on this movie, since that's his niche knowledge.
That's the thing too, is when thinking about that final fight, like you were talking about, I've been talking about how powerful a shot can be, is the fact that the camera pulls out when they're on this bridge and it's literally framed like a video game. And that's when you can tell like that is how I'm supposed to take this movie. The filmmaker, James Wong, is telling me this is what you're about to see, right? This is why the type of entertainment that I'm providing for you right now. And I'm like, all right, let's go. And I don't think it disappointed me. And I get that you're like, I don't know about the superpowers thing, but bro, they were like both about to be the one. So there's a lot of energy there. There's a lot of
it's
laws.
like the superpowers don't take me out of it. It's like the sound effects and how like it was like shot, and then like the bad green screen. It was like that type of stuff that was taking me out.
I grew up on Power Rangers, baby. I'm good. I'm good with that. Sound effects. Hua! 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 Like that's.
I don't mind that. It was when they added in like what sounded like Mario running up some stairs when he was moving quickly.
Gotta go fast. But I appreciate it. We haven't talked about Delroy Lindo and Jason Statham. I like this movie for Jason Statham. It's very different than anything I'm used to seeing him in. He is still playing an officer. Yeah, he does. He does have hair, which was an interesting surprise. He has a little bit of it in Snatch, but he does have hair, which was a very interesting surprise. But you do learn a little bit of the fact there is a little bit of connection there, right? It's because Delroy Lindo used to be a partner of ULaw's, and then ULaw accidentally killed himself on a mission because they are the multiversal police, and then realized that he can get powerful, and that's when he like turned to the dark side. Star Wars, speaking there. But also Delroy Lindo unfortunately passes away, and that gives Jason Statham some type of drive to enact his revenge on ULaw. But besides that, I mean, this is a Jason Statham episode. We're trying to talk about him. He doesn't do a whole lot here. So that's unfortunate. But a whole lot of I was just thinking about Carla the entire time. Maybe he did do a whole lot. I just missed it.
Yeah, it's nice seeing her in something good. Since the last thing we watched with her was bad.
Oh.
No.
I was gonna be like, sir, Spy Kids, my friend.
No, the last time we were speaking of her, it was a very bad movie.
Oh, also she's like one of Mike Flanagan's crew. So she's in the Haunting of Hill House. I mean, Gerald's Game. Excuse me. Gerald's Game is Mike Flanagan. I mean, she's been in
Spy Kids is the first movie you think of when you think of her?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's funny because I watched that like religiously growing up, but mine is Night at the Museum.
Dude, brother, she has the red hair. Oh, I'll never forget, man. She got some nice, like shorter, not like short, a nice like bob red hair. I mean, it's hard to forget.
We're getting a
Oh,
little
she also
off
had,
topic.
yeah, she also did Sucker Punch with Zack Snyder. I'll have to see that.
And Watchmen.
Yeah. Shoot, Carl's getting around. Good for her. But I see her working still. I would
Was
say
Lisa
so.
Frankenstein in?
Yeah, it was good. It was a little cute movie, I would say. Dan liked it as well.
She was in that too.
But yeah, one I rate it as a 3, you rate it as a 2. That is what we have as the one. Good counting down there. But Connor, do you have any recommendations for a movie this week? I can go if you want me to. I just have a show I can recommend.
I'm good. So, as Stone, I know you aren't the biggest sports guy like Dan and I are, but baseball is back.
Mm.
With that being said, what was his name? Cousin Avi? Yeah, and
Avi.
Avi. My apologies.
You're good.
Um, Reminded me of the movie I want to recommend in honor of baseball being back, and it's Little Big League. I think I've actually recommended this on last year's opening day episode that we did, but one of my like all-time favorite movies. It's only been logged by 820 people on Letterboxd, me being two of them. Um, Good time. Basically, this guy owns the Minnesota Twins. He passes away, and then he gives the team to his 12-year-old grandson. His grandson takes over the team, and then basically fires the manager, and he takes over as manager as a 12-year-old kid. And I think
Nice.
everyone can have a good time with it, even if you don't love baseball. You just might not appreciate like the big names that are in it.
That's the thing is, it used to be such a cool fantasy as a child to grow up and try to have adult jobs. I mean, I guess it still is maybe, but I just think of Spy Kids. It kind of has a similar premise, right? Is these kids become spies. This kid becomes a major league owner or the team owner.
Yeah.
So I think I can only imagine how. Did you watch that when you were young?
Yeah, I like grew up on it.
Yeah, I can like imagine how nostalgic you are for that film.
I actually just posted a clip to our TikTok page of when I talked about it on our opening day episode.
There you go. Everyone go check it out. That's funny though that you're like, oh yeah, I did talk about it. I just posted a video. But my recommendation this week, Severance is over. People go watch Severance if you have Apple TV, if you want to sign up. But if you do, or if you have Apple TV, a lot of people have been talking about it, and I do agree. I think the show is very good, and it's called The Studio, starring Seth Goldberg, written by him and his writing partner for many years, who I'm missing his name right now. Adam Wingard? No, not Wingard. Adam Goldberg. Yeah, Seth Rogen and Adam Goldberg. There we go. Evan Goldberg. Evan Goldberg. My bad. Anyways, they've done The Boys. Like that's the number one thing that pops in my head that they've done with each other. But I'm continue to be impressed by Seth Rogen and how he's adapted in Hollywood over the years. He's not one of these comedians who, says that I like others, like it's woke, I can't do comedy anymore. No, he just finds new ways he finds what is current and what is funny in our society now, and he acts on it still in a humorous way. And what he has decided to talk about now is the movie industry. And there's only 2 episodes of The Studio out currently. The next episode premieres on Wednesday, but I watched both of them, and it's stuff that we talk about every single day or think about every single day in the film talk community, but it's just put actually into a show, which is interesting. The fact that he is the studio head of this company now and wants to make really good artsy fartsy, as it's said in the show, films, but the people who are giving him the money to do all these projects want more commercialized stuff. They want IPs. They don't want that. And it's him, you watch him have this constant battle between how do I make both things happen? And it's really difficult. The show is shot beautifully. The second episode is called The Oneer. It's a really one of the coolest episodes I've ever seen because Seth Rogen is such a film fan that he tries to go and catch somebody doing a oneer, right? A one-shot take, super long take at a movie like set. But the entire episode itself is a oneer. Genius. I mean, maybe not genius, but really cool idea. There's a lot of tension in it, and the climax is just amazing. Seth Rogen is just still comedic gold. I really enjoy what he does when he acts and when he produces and maybe even directs. I don't know if he's directed anything. I don't think he has, but yeah, genuinely the studio is a good. Enjoy the hype or believe the hype. I would say for the studio, very good film or a very good show. But yeah, so that is this week's Goodwill Podcasting on Jason Statham.
Seth Rogen's directed 3 movies.
What has he directed?
Future Man, The Interview, and This Is the End.
Really?
Yeah, I actually didn't know he directed This Is the End. I knew he directed The Interview.
Interesting.
Have you seen This Is the End?
No, I have not. He did direct This Is the End. He directed it with Evan Goldberg. Okay.
Okay. You aren't a comedy guy, but I actually think you might enjoy this comedy.
Sorry, This Is the End?
Yes.
Did I just say I haven't watched it?
Correct.
I have watched it. I'm sorry. I was focused on looking at these movies. Yes, I like that movie. I like it until they get out of the house.
That's fair. Wait, but that's when Channing Tatum comes in.
I mean, he can only do so much for me. It's a one joke, and once you know the joke, it's kind of like it's whatever. I think Danny McBride is such an underrated talent. He's so funny. Danny McBride is so funny. Also, Future Man, I used to watch it. It is actually a show that is on Hulu. It's a Hulu original show. Okay. So that's interesting that he did that. It's like one of the first Hulu shows that ever was, and I don't know why, but I watched it because I liked Josh Hutcherson.
Okay. But, yeah, I mean, looks like a decent cast.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, those are our recommendations. Jason Statham, love the guy. If he continues to do the same thing over and over again, I hope it's with a better film than A Working Man. Not really a huge fan of it, but I did like The Beekeeper. What's up?
Oh, before you closed out, I wanted to say, I believe we have this episode coming out on Tuesday. If that is the case, Stone and I will talk about it when we wrap. Everyone comment under this video, happy birthday, Dan, because that's his birthday on Tuesday.
Wow. Look at that. A real one right there. So yeah, comment under this video if you want to say happy birthday to Dan. Hopefully Dan sees the end of this video and watches it to know how good of a friend you are. Thank you for interrupting me for that.
I will clip this right now, and we will post it on Tuesday for everyone to.
Do you know when my birthday is?
No.
Wow. My birthday's today. Thanks, Connor.
When's my birthday?
I don't know. I mean, at least I don't know Dan's birthday either. At least I do now.
If you want me to like ruin the vibe and make me feel like a worse friend, it's because Dan texted yesterday and said, "Hey, I'm doing something."
Oh, that is true. That is true. My bad.
That's the only reason.
That is why Dan isn't here, is because of birthday stuff. That is true. My bad. Anyways, yeah, Jason Statham, Connor. We should have kept on talking. You're making me look bad. But yeah, appreciate everyone listening to the episode. Please check out our A Working Man review with me and Dan. That should be out around the same time as this video. I'm really excited to put out 2 videos this week. Please seek them both out. Please like them, subscribe, comment, whatever. But until next week, until we talk about a Minecraft movie and possibly other movies as well, go outside, sit on a park bench, touch some grass, call up your friends, and we'll see you then. Peace out, everybody.